You know that feeling when you click Add to Cart on a synth that looks like a work of art on the product page, only to find it sitting in your studio feeling flat, noisy, or just not the magic you imagined. I've been there more than once, and the disappointment is why I'm doing this deep dive today. The Yamaha MONTAGE M7 promises flagship status, gorgeous key action, and a whole universe of sounds. But the real question is whether it lives up to the hype when you actually press those keys. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the hesitation most buyers feel. A 76-key workstation like this isn't a casual purchase. It's a commitment of space, money, and learning time. You're looking at a piece of gear that could become the centerpiece of your rig, but you also risk ending up with a massive slab of metal that gathers dust because you never really needed the extra bells and whistles. That's why I'm breaking down the MONTAGE M7 the way a seasoned player would through the lens of daily workflow, not just glossy marketing copy. When you unbox the M7, you're greeted by Yamaha's FSX action keys that feel weighted, responsive, and equipped with Aftertouch. In a real-world studio scenario, that Aftertouch becomes a subtle tool for shaping pads, adding vocal-like swells to synth leads, or even modulating filter cutoff on the fly. I tested it while laying down a cinematic string pad for a short film score. The Aftertouch responded instantly, letting me press the low C a little harder and hear the pad open up without reaching for a modulation wheel. It's that kind of tactile feedback that keeps a performance feeling human, especially when you're layering dozens of tracks in a DAW. Polyphony is another arena where the M7 shows its teeth. With 400 notes spread across 3 engines, AWM2, FMX, and the newer ANX analog emulator, you can stack layers, arpeggios, and long reverbs without the dreaded voice stealing that plagues cheaper workstations. I built a live loop setup where a bass synth, a plucky lead, and a lush pad all played simultaneously. Even when the pad held a 16-second reverb tail, the bass kept its articulation and the lead stayed clean. That seamless interaction matters when you're performing live and can't afford to hear notes drop out mid-song. The ANX engine is Yamaha's answer to the analog revival trend, but it's not just a digital approximation. In practice, it offers a surprisingly organic character. I programmed a classic Moog-style bass for a funk track, and the slight nonlinearities gave it that gritty bite you'd expect from a hardware synth. Yet the patch was fully editable on the fly. The ability to tweak oscillator drift, saturation, and even the filter's response directly from the front panel saved me countless minutes of bouncing back to a VST for minor tweaks. Speaking of VSTs, the expanded softsynth plugin is a hidden gem for those who work primarily inside a DAW. The plugin mirrors the M7's 3 engines, meaning you can draft ideas on your laptop and then swap in the hardware for the final mix with one click. In my workflow, I started a track on the plugin while commuting, then opened the hardware in the studio and found the patches translated perfectly down to the Aftertouch curves. That continuity bridges the gap between laptop convenience and the tactile joy of a dedicated synth. Now, let's be honest about the drawbacks. The first thing you'll notice is the size. The M7 is a full-size workstation about the footprint of a small console. If you're limited to a cramped home studio or a gig rig that has to fit into a single road case, you'll need to plan carefully. The weight, too, is non-trivial. It's not something you'll want to lug around on a whim. That's why many users end up pairing it with a dedicated stand and a sturdy desk, which adds to the overall cost and space requirements. The learning curve can feel steep for anyone not already familiar with Yamaha's ecosystem. The 3 engines each have deep parameter trees, and while the interface is logical, you'll spend a good chunk of your initial weeks just exploring routing, modulation matrices, and the new keyboard, P controls that Yamaha touts. If you're a seasoned sound designer who thrives on diving into menus, this is a playground. If you just want a plug-and-play synth for quick chord progressions, you might find yourself overwhelmed. Pricing, of course, is the elephant in the room. The M7 sits in the high-end bracket of workstation keyboards, and while the specs justify a premium, the real value comes from how you leverage those capabilities. If you already own a DAW, a collection of soft synths, and perhaps a separate analog module, you might not need the full breadth of 3 engines and the 400-note polyphony. In that case, you could end up paying for features you never touch. So, who should seriously consider the MONTAGE M7? First, professional composers and producers who need an all-in-one workstation that can handle intricate layering.